always clear the space and light it instant. Okay, y'all. So today I'm gonna be talking about martyrdom because I feel like this has been coming up for me over and over again for the last couple of months, and I think it's been coming in phases. Hey, memory girl. Hey, Jayla. It's been coming up for me in phases, and I've come to a realization over this weekend about understanding martyrdom and where it comes from. Um, and I think I've been being prepared for this message for about a couple of months at least, because it started with betrayal coming up, then longing came up, grief came up, shame came up, and all of those things are intrinsically connected to this martyr loop that we've been experiencing as a collective. And so I wanted to get on here and do a full session about it. Just because I think a lot of women in society deal with this, but not just women. There's also, kids of single parents who deal with a lot of martyr loops as well, because we find ourselves trying to pay back an invisible debt to the people around us who helped us, while we were suffering. And also kids who didn't have a lot. It could have been that your parent wasn't single, but it was six of y'all, and there wasn't enough resources to go around. And so y'all needed help, and y'all tried to make yourself useful. Y'all tried to protect your parents from the shame, whatever the case may be. Y'all tried to help when it wasn't y'all responsibility. And it leaves you carrying this weight. But it also, if you never go back as an adult and look at it again, you just keep repeating the cycle in your adult life. And so I kind of want to talk about that today and talk about the different facets of it, talk about the different martyrs, because I've been every single martyr in the book. Okay. Sister Girl has tried to save the whole world, multiple lives, multiple lives. And it's come at the detriment of me. And so I think that a lot of our self-sacrificing behavior and a lot of the self-abandonment, self-betrayal that we experience comes from us trying to save other people, or us trying to show people what it's like to love someone, and a lot of us confuse love with sacrifice, and love does not require sacrifice. And so I just wanted to hop on here, do my thing, because I feel like I've been really exhausted this week. I'm not gonna lie, this week tore me up. I don't know what is in the energy. Actually, I do. Ever since we started the feminine cycle, which was September 22nd, if y'all don't know this, the feminine cycle is about turning inwards. And so a lot of what I have been experiencing, or a lot of what's been happening, is like a lot of the things that was taking up my time during the masculine cycle have either disappeared or have been moved out of the way. And I have been getting a lot of downloads. I've been doing a lot of internal work, which I feel like I kind of do that anyways, but this feels like I've almost been sat down. Like, it's time for you to sit down. It's time for you to work on you. It's time for you to, and your girl has been stressed out. But I've been trying to work out to, balance it out and stuff. But yeah, so I wanted to get on here and give this message because I feel like if you are somebody who is sensitive to collective energies, and you're not aware that you're sensitive to collective energies, you might have been going through it this last 2 months, and it's because the martyr loop is being transmuted or being alchemized on a collective level, which requires us to look at past betrayals. It requires us to look at the longing, the grief, and all of those things. Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is the original divine design, meaning like what we all understood on a cosmic level before we fell into distortion, because the martyr loop started from us, a group of us being able to remember, right? We remembered, we did not fall into distortion, right? And because we remembered, we decided to hang behind, because there were beings when Atlantis fell, Lyra fell, Sophia fell, like any of the falls happened. There were beings who went into like the interdimensional folds. They went into inner earth. They went to other realms. But there were a certain amount of higher energy beings who decided to stay here and decided to help, right? And through us staying here and helping with that, we were the ones who remembered. And that energy of us remembering, us trying to help, kind of pushed us into this martyr loop where we were trying to do the work for people. And I just kind of want to talk about that on a higher level. I'm getting ready for my day and listening to you while I'm doing so. Glad to be here. Okay, hey Jen, welcome in. So I want to start with the original divine design. Okay, so these were never like a set of rules or laws. It was like a living template encoded in our oversoul design, meaning like all of us kind of existed with this knowingness, with this understanding, with this vibrational architecture of harmony, of embodiment, and of sovereign co-creation, meaning like we're creating this thing together, right? And so within this original divine design was the sacred reciprocity. And sacred reciprocity, I mean, we're going to say it's a law, but just understand at a higher level. It's not a law like you're going to go to jail or there's going to be punishment if you don't follow this, right? But it was a law that we all kind of just, it was embedded into our architecture, right? So sacred reciprocity, which means that energy was never meant to be extracted. It was never meant to be hoarded. It was never meant to be owned, right? And if you think about that from what we're dealing with in our society right now, money is the physical manifestation of energy exchange in this reality. It's like our most prominent one, but it's not the only way to exchange energy, but it is the most prominent. And so we understood you can't extract it, you can't hoard it, you can't own it, right? Instead, it moved in sacred cycles. What was given was received in equal resonance. So there was a reciprocity to everything. And it's not transactional, it's transfigurational, which means that when you give your sacred energy and somebody gives their sacred energy back, it was like it was like a elevation, right? It wasn't like I owe you, you owe me, like that type of thing. There was no overgiving, there was no withholding. It was only mutual becoming. Like you're helping me, I'm helping you to elevate, right? That's what transfiguration really is. And so we knew how to receive without guilt, and we knew how to give without depletion. And some of the key principles of the sacred reciprocity was exchange was not a transaction. It was transfiguration, which is a spiritual and transformative elevation. So I'm helping you to elevate, you helping me to elevate, right? Also, we understood that embodiment was the temple, meaning that we remember that our bodies were not burdened or a burden to us. They were our blueprint. Like your body is a water temple. It's a technology, right? And we understood that. So we knew that our body held the divine frequencies of the cosmos. And to be fully embodied was to be fully connected to source, to earth, and also to each other, right? And so others forgot and left their body, meaning like, they dealt with a lot of fear sensations and didn't want to they feared pain and didn't want to feel that again. And a lot of times what happens when we're in that energy is we disconnect from our bodies. And that can look like closing our hearts off, our heart spaces off. That can look like becoming hypervigilant, where your energy is on the outside scanning your environment instead of being in your body. So for those of us who remembered, who fell into these martyr loops, we stayed present through descent, through density, through distortion. And so the key principle here is that we were never meant to escape our body. We were only here to awaken it, right? And we understood that we are not here to escape the body. We're here to awaken the body. And so to remember. Also, co-creation without hierarchy. We remember that no being was above or below another. There was no saviors. There was no servants. Only differentiated expressions of the same one flame. So we're all connected. We're just mirrors to each other is what we understood. And this is what we mean by that mirror flame. It's not just about a twin flame or a twin energy, but sacred mirrors across timelines that were meant to reflect back to us and us to reflect to them, so that again we can continue to grow and evolve and all of those things. But others fell into hierarchy, into control, into domination, and we remained encoded with the remembrance that each being held the key. Meaning like those of us who were martyrs, we remembered each being held a key, while other people fell into hierarchy, right? And so the key principle within co-creation is that there was no ascension without recognition of all, meaning like you cannot ascend and be on the path of service to self. You can only ascend when you're on a path of service to other people, because the path to service to self requires 95% narcissism, hatred, envy, jealousy, right? All of the lower emotions. And they don't see their heart space as being useful, so they skip that part. And so they only can become 6 density beings, right? Otherwise, you would have to go back down and start over again. Most of them don't. So a lot of them are trapped in this frequency. But we remembered that you have to recognize all, right? It has to be a service to other people, which is 51% service to other people, 49% service to yourself, or vice versa, 51% service to yourself, 49% service to other people. And that only requires balance, you know? And so we also understood that sovereignty is something that's within unity. Like freedom comes from unity, right? So we held the paradox that we are individuals, and we're all interconnected, but there is power in our yes and our no, even within oneness. Meaning, like, you're not supposed to just endlessly give to other people. Like, there's power in your yes and in your no. And so sovereignty for us did not mean separation, you know. And I think a lot of times we still play out that archetype of sovereignty and separation. Those of us who go into isolation, those of us who self-exile ourselves, right? And we like, well, we're just protecting our peace. That's spiritual bypassing, because you need community. You know, sovereignty exists within unity. Can you stand in your integrity while you're still in the storm and not just in isolation? And so it meant sacred choice, it meant sacred embodiment, and the power to redirect timelines through will and also through witness, being like witnessing other people, but also being witnessed as well. So others mistook surrender for submission. And we remember that surrender and alignment with truth is not self-abandonment. And so unity is not sameness. You're not here to be the same as everybody else. You hold a specific key, I hold a specific key, right? And so there is harmony between you being sovereign. Like, you got to figure out how to remain your individual authentic self and also be of service to other people, if that makes sense. And then we also understood the spiral that we live in a spiral. It's not a line. You know, I think we think in this reality, everything is so linear, right? We understood that nothing is linear. And so we understood that everything kind of curled like DNA, like memory moving through your body. And other people forgot this. And so they began to believe in separation and finality and endings without return, which is like death, which is like, what else did they believe in? Time as well, because time keeps us trapped into age, like birthdays, for example. They remind us that we're getting older. Like calendars, they remind us that on Monday we have a duty, right? And so they keep us in this, they pull us out of the now moment and push us into, there's something else we got to be doing, you know, like they push us into worrying about the past, worrying about the future, like that type of stuff. And so we held the codes of timelessness, those of us who fell into these martyr loops. So we became memory keepers, we became gatekeepers, we became timeline weavers. But what was forgotten was not lost. It was just simply sleeping within the spiral. And we understood that. So it's like, yes, these people fell into distortion. You know, yes, people started falling into domination, control, and all of these things. However, the material is all still there. You just have to uncover it. You just buried it, right? We understood that as well. And then the last thing that we understood was that flame is meant to be used as a frequency, not as a fire, meaning that flame was never about burning. It was about illumination. It was about transmutation, and it was about inner truth. And each being carried a distinct flame lineage and a tone of source, which y'all know I do flame lineage reading. So, you know, we remembered how to activate. We remembered how to reorganize it in other people and how to let it like bring us alive, right? Others feared their own power and they suppressed it because, again, they fell into these fear loops. And we remembered when the inner flame is honored, there is nothing to fight. Like literally everything comes in ease. And so your flame is not for war, it is for awakening. And so we remembered that, those of us who got caught in these martyr loops, okay? So while other people could not remember, we understood they were encoded for a different role, experiencing density, learning through separation. Some fell into fear after galactic betrayal and chose amnesia for protection, meaning like they chose to forget. You know, like I think our brain does a really unique thing that when we experience trauma, it wipes it away so that we don't have to live with the shame or the guilt or whatever. So our brain has like a back end protection system that keeps us from reliving things that caused major harm or fear or things that overload our nervous system, right? But it's not really good for us because the body still remembers. It's just your mind doesn't remember, right? So others were never seated within the original template. We were meant to be the anchors for them, meaning like there was only 144,000, right? Not everybody fits within that. And so we were meant to be the anchors to reflect the light back towards them. And we remembered because we chose to carry it through this lifetime, through exile, through collapse, and through fragmentation. Um, we were not meant to forget, right? And so now, um, we are not here to convince other people of the memory. We're here to embody it so powerfully that it awakens the templates in other people and to become the living transmission of the original design. Okay. Now, the reason why the original design is important, or why you need to understand what the original design was, is because the martyr loop comes from, like on an oversoul level, the martyr loop seeded itself when those of us who remembered the original divine design stayed behind in a distortion riddled environment, or realms with an S, to help other people reawaken their codes. And this wasn't wrong, it wasn't bad, it was a act of pure love on our part, being higher beings, feeling like we were capable of going into these dense environments and helping, right? But as distortion deepened, and our once powerful remembrance began to bleed into saviorism, meaning like we went from being the embodied example to almost being panicked and trying to show them, like, I'm just going to show you how to do it. We start trying to do the work for them, taking on their burdens and things like that, which caused us to then fall into distortion. And so we fell into saviorism, then into sacrifice, and eventually into self-erasure. And many of us forgot that staying in remembrance did not mean self-abandonment. And we started abandoning ourselves, coming out of our original tone to help other people. And so we thought that if we could just anchor enough light, if we could just do enough, if we could just serve enough, maybe they will remember too. And many did. It wasn't a failed way of thinking, but many didn't. And because there were more people who didn't, or more people falling into distortion, we began to internalize the suffering of other people as our fault. Like, I should have been enough to save them, right? It's almost like, I don't know if y'all had this experience, but I sure the fuck did. When I was a kid, like, I think I suffered a lot because I internalized that I should be able to do more, right? And that somehow was my fault, because when you're a kid, you center yourself in everything, because everything really is about you. You know, your parents is going to work so they can make sure you have food. You know, your parents has to leave work if you're sick at school. Like, everything is ultimately about you. And so, as a kid, we tend to center ourselves in things that don't really belong to us. Hey, Collie. I think it's Collie. Welcome, girl. But we center ourselves in the middle of it because we don't have a sense of control, and we feel powerless. And when we feel powerless, if we can internalize blame, then at least we can control that, right? So we internalize the suffering of other people as our fault. We took on the burdens of those who were suffering, things that were never ours to carry. We also equated love with self-denial, meaning like we have to sacrifice something in order to love somebody else, which is time, which is access to us, which is, you know, which is time, access, just everything, our space, you know. And then we believed that our worth was tied to us being needed, because we stopped showing them through being the embodied example, and we started trying to force it, right? And that's really what it is. And it created a frequency distortion that still hums in our energetic fields today that says that you must suffer for other people to heal. Meaning, like, you need to sacrifice yourself so much, you have to endlessly give, because that's going to help somebody else heal, right? And if you're not useful, then you're invisible. You know, love is sacrifice. Those are some of the things that we're still replaying, because we forgot that remembrance does not require you to keep saying yes. Your no is just as sacred as your yes is sacred. You know, prioritizing everybody's well-being and comfort over your own comfort and well-being is self-abandonment. Right. And so what happened to us as those who remember, over time, we became hyper aware, always scanning for people who needed us, or scanning for people's needs. I feel like if you were a kid of a single parent, you know this, right? It's like figuring out how you can help in some way, right? Energetic containers for other people's pains, often unconsciously, meaning like we became energetic containers for other people's pain. Now, when you're the type of person who has cleared enough trauma, and this happens to me all the time, But when you are the type of person who's cleared enough trauma on an energetic level, your energy feels safe to other people. And what safety actually is that your vessel is clear. So that what will tend to happen is that people will, on an energetic level, sense that your container is clear enough to hold the energy that they are overwhelmed with, meaning they have so much of it, too much of it, that they'll try to shift that energy from them onto you. And that's what we call trauma dumping. Right? They sense that you're an energetic container where they can put energy, because energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can be transferred, right? And so they try to unconsciously transfer that energy into your container. And because we had started to fall in distortion, we became the energetic containers that they put their trauma in, if that makes sense. I hope that made sense, y'all. Also, we became exhausted channels trying to carry what was never ours to carry, right? We were constantly trying to help, constantly channeling information, constantly having our well tapped, right? We unconsciously became resentful because we forgot how to receive. When you're constantly giving to other people, you feel invisible because you become everything to everybody. But then not now you're meeting somebody else's needs, and nobody is meeting your needs, right? And so there's a version of you inside of yourself that's like, why do you keep prioritizing other people's comfort over our own comfort? We're important too, which is that self-betrayal. But also we become resentful because we keep in track. We like, well, I did this for you. You know, I asked you for one thing, you can't do nothing for me. You know, and we start to get angry or upset at the people that we've overextended ourselves for, even when they haven't even helped us. Right? Not only that, we haven't even asked for help. We didn't even tell them that we were at a detriment. When people are used to you being the one swooping in and saving them, there's also this mask that we wear that we're always okay, we have it together, and that's why we're able to help, right? We got to be the strong one for everybody. And so we take on that, and people take us at our word because we haven't shown them anything else. And then we get upset behind the scenes like nobody is showing up for us, but we haven't even given them an opportunity because we're not even sharing what we're going through, because our journey becomes about us endlessly trying to help other people heal, which also leads to avoidance of self-intimacy, avoidance of our own healing, right? And so we unconsciously become resentful because with niceness, not being able to say no, comes anger, suppressed anger, right? Because you don't feel seen in any of your relationships. You feel alone. It robs you of genuine connection. And so people pleasing robs you of genuine connection, right? And then we also became quietly ashamed because no matter how much we gave, how hard we tried, it never felt like we were enough, right? And so we started internalizing that we must be the problem. We're not enough, you know, and it starts off. And what's crazy is when I was talking to my oversoul earlier this week, I said to myself that, damn, it left quick as hell. Wait a second, it's got to come back. Damn. Oh no. So when I was talking to my oversoul earlier this week, I was thinking about how I show up in relationships, right? And how I'm constantly being the one who is like, when I start a relationship, or most people who have been through trauma, right? We tend to choose people or partners that need love, not partners who actually know how to receive love, right? And so when we go in that dynamic, a lot of times the role that we play is I'm going to show them how to love, right? And it causes us to overextend ourselves, not be able to say no because we're trying to be like, we're trying to prove that we're a good sister, good lover, good whatever the case may be, right? And so it starts off, or the dynamic starts off is like, I'm going to show them how to love. But eventually, because this is a person who is not even open to receiving love, right? They end up hurting you. They end up betraying you, and you stay because you got unconditional tolerance, right? You think unconditional tolerance is love. You think sacrifice is love. And so you stay over and over and over again. But that moment that you decide to leave, there is a moment where you say to yourself that it goes from, I'm going to show them how to love, to I must not be lovable, right? We internalize it as shame because we thought we was going to be the one. We thought we were going to be the one to save them. We thought that this person was going to change for us. And so we gave them more of what they already didn't fucking appreciate. And so when we realize and we accept, hey, we're not going to be the one, then we internalize that must mean I'm unlovable, right? And so we stick ourselves in these loops of shame when It was never our job to heal, fix, and save them in the first place. We don't realize that we're trying to prove ourselves through them, which is a form of manipulation, by the way. But we're trying to prove ourselves through them, prove our worth through them, because we've taught our worth to being needed. We've taught our worth to how much we can give. We've taught our worth to how little we need, right? Because for me, I grew up and we needed a lot of help. And so I tried not to need anything from anybody so that I wouldn't have to be disappointed, so that I wouldn't have to be talked about, so that I wouldn't have my autonomy taken away, right? And so we tie our work to all these things, and when we don't even just get those at the bare minimum, we internalize that it must be us. Something is wrong with us, right? Now, because we were operating on remembrance frequency, our field magnetized people who wanted to be saved because we're operating at a remembrance frequency. Okay. Our field started to magnetize people who wanted to be saved, not those who wanted to walk beside us, meaning they were looking for a savior. Because we stepped into the savior role, they were looking for a savior, and our field started pulling people towards us based off of the role that we was playing. Now, most people don't know this, but your sacral is your emotional center, right? It's the center that connects you to other people. And so the way that you heal the sacral is by letting go, meaning that whatever comes in when it comes to relationships, whenever it's time for it to come in, let it come in. Whenever it's time for it to leave, let it leave, right? But not only that, it's also responsible for who you magnetize towards you in relationships, the health of your sacral. And so if your sacral is healthy, you're going to magnetize people who are emotionally healthy. But if it's unhealthy, you're going to magnetize people who are emotionally unhealthy, right? And so because we stepped into this savior role where we were trying to prove ourselves, right, and into this distorted energy, we started magnetizing people who were unhealthy, right? People who needed saving, people who were hopeless, people who felt like they couldn't do that themselves, not people who actually wanted to be a being that walked beside us. Okay. So we became teachers, we became healers, we became leaders, and also like reservoirs for generational trauma, for ancestral burdens and soul contracts that we did not sign, meaning that we didn't know that we were signing these soul contracts when we signed up for them, meaning like we made these vows like, based off the experience that we're having, like, oh, I'm going to be the one to save them, or whatever the case may be. And now we're tied to them, right? So I think for women, this is so much deeper. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we live in a distorted earth timeline, and the divine feminine became synonymous with submission, with suffering, with silence, with service without recognition, which is all of the things that fit into this martyr role that happened on a collective level. And so women who led with remembrance were called witches and heretics, or unworthy unless they fit inside the system of control. And the martyrdom program became spiritually coded as virtuous, meaning that they praise women in this society for being a martyr, right? And so what they tend to say to us is, oh my gosh, she gave up everything for her kids. She changed her life for her kids. She stayed even when it broke her for her kids. She stayed in that relationship, right? She loved them no matter what they did to her. They praise you and they say that's virtuous of you, right? And so it goes so much deeper for us because we had already fell into the martyr loop, and then society used that and weaponized that against us, right? So this warped our understanding of love and of power and of receiving, because now, because we're praised for not receiving, we are in an imbalance, okay? So those of us who carried the ancient flame codes, this distortion became a sacred wound, a shadow lodged so deep that healing it often is going to trigger shame, rage, grief, and the feeling of betrayal by source itself. And so a lot of us have a fear of feeling those things because of this being lodged so deeply that we close it off, right? We don't see it as an entry point, because that's what it is. It's an entry point into a threshold, right? Which is the memory. But we don't see it that way because we're too busy trying to protect ourselves from the shame, from the grief, from the feeling of betrayal. And sometimes that betrayal isn't outside of you. Sometimes it's from you. You're the betrayer, right? And so I think that the reason why I feel like this conversation today was important is because it's coming up for the collective to be cleared. And I just wanted it to be recorded. I wanted it to be something, people who are stuck in this martyr loop can look at, right? Because a lot of us are deactivating this in our personal oversoul field. So this is coming up right now. It's been coming up in the last couple months. And we're disentangling ourselves from this distorted code of love that we have fell into because past life betrayals and also the society that we live in now. And we're starting to remember that we're not responsible for saving anybody and that our embodiment alone reactivates timelines. We don't have to actually force love. We need, which is given endlessly because we're trying to show people that we're lovable, right? Receiving is not betrayal, is divine equilibrium, and sovereignty does not cancel compassion, right? Sovereignty does not cancel compassion. And I think there's so many people who think that boundaries are demands. Okay, you demand other people to show up a specific way so that you can feel safe, but boundaries are for you. And not only that, is that they'll think that they're above. It's almost like this spiritual superiority. Well, I'm protecting my peace. I don't deal with that type of mess or that type of not understanding that you was once there. One, what if somebody treated you that way? But also, two, that this is a system or this is a byproduct of something that's way bigger than just us. If you take on the personality of, like I'm better because I've gotten this far on my journey, you're still operating out of fear-based energy. You're still operating out of this energy of unworthiness, right? And so sovereignty needs compassion. Let me just say that. But the discomfort that we're feeling right now, it isn't regression, it is liberation. And I wanted to, I guess, talk about this on a deeper level because I don't know. Like, I feel like people don't be talking about this shit. And I just feel like I need to be the one. I don't know. Maybe that's part of my martyr loop still, because I told you I done been every type of martyr in the book. Damn. Now I'm gonna have to look at that later. Anyways, so the root of martyrdom came from betrayal. Okay. And martyrdom is not just one frequency. It's a braided pattern woven from betrayal, from invisibility, from survivalism, meaning like a lot of us chose martyrdom because it was the only way for us to stay safe, and also distorted love. And so the core wound beneath this martyrdom loop is betrayal. And at the root of the martyrdom loop is and the betrayal, I'm sorry, is not like a betrayal of this life, it's primordial. Not just a personal, but collective and soul level betrayal. It's that feeling that I show up in purity, or I showed up in purity and they didn't protect me. I gave everything and they still left me, right? And I think what's crazy about that is I think I was talking about this on live when we were doing like a Lionsgate or something like that. And I said that one of my biggest fears that I didn't realize was a fear of mine is that I show up fully and somebody chooses me. And then because I'm showing up fully, or I'm sorry, I show up fully and whoever has chosen me will abandon me because of that, right? I think a lot of us feel that way, and it's because of this soul level deep betrayal, right? Also, I tried to help and they abandoned me or they punished me, which I think a lot of us, I'm just trying to help, but people don't see that help. When they're not ready to change, they see that help as judgment, criticism, and you think you better than me or you're a know-it-all, whatever, right? And that's just how that energy works. But we feel punished for trying to help, but we don't realize that help doesn't come from force, right? And so this betrayal comes from family systems, carrying the burdens of your parents, feeling like you need to be the one responsible for them, trying to protect them from shame. It also comes from early friendships, being the emotional caretaker. It comes from spiritual contracts, offering your light and being cast out or crucified for it. And galactic history, being a part of remembrance missions that went dark or failed. And I've been a part of a couple of those, right? So this betrayal then fractures the trust between yourself and also source. And then that's where martyrdom begins, right? You feel like you need to be the savior. And I feel like because it fractures it between you and source, because we're kind of, I don't want to say sold this dream, because that's not really what it is, but you think that love is enough sometimes, right? And I think source is love, right? And you think that love is enough. And then when you find out that it wasn't enough, you feel like you've been duped, right? And then you internalize that you're the problem, right? And so when it comes to this martyrdom loop, there's kind of three prongs to it. There's invisibility is the main one. Martyrdom is not just about sacrifice. It's often built on the bones of betrayal. Like I said, so deep betrayals that fracture trust in other people, in the divine, and even yourself. And so we feel like we need to stay small so that we won't be targeted. If no one sees me, no one can hurt me, right? And so after betrayal, visibility feels dangerous. After you have been betrayed, after you have been told that you're judgmental, you're this, you're that. How many times have you just separated yourself from those people? Right? How many times have you just been like, you know what, figure it out by yourself? You know what, I'm done trying. Right? And you make yourself small. You make yourself. How many times have you just went silent? Right? After betrayal, visibility feels dangerous. And so the martyr hides spiritually, emotionally, even in his success, fearing that being fully seen will invite more pain in. Right? And this becomes a protective cloak of invisibility. If I don't need anything, I won't be a burden. If I'm quiet and helpful, I won't be rejected. If I disappear, they won't hurt me. So it's like that whole idea of women need to be seen but not heard, right? Because it keeps us safe. And so you become useful but unseen, the quiet one, the overgiver, the one behind the scenes. And I feel like a lot of us saw our mamas play this role. And then there's also hyper independence, which is my favorite. Actually, invisibility, I did that very well too. But hyper independence is probably my favorite now in where I am in life. And this is those people who betrayed you, and you were supposed to trust them like your caretakers, your lovers, guides, systems, begin to equate receiving with disempowerment. Okay. Okay. So let me say it again, because I feel like I said that backwards. Those of us who were betrayed by those people who we trusted, our caretakers, our lovers, our guides, our systems, whatever the case may be, we begin to equate receiving with disempowerment. So we built lives rooted in radical self-reliance, but secretly burned out, collapsed, or quietly quietly longed to be held by people. It's like we almost had to disconnect ourselves to stay safe, or had to not need anybody to stay safe. And this created the loop of hyper independence and block receptivity, meaning I'll never need anyone again. Dependence equals anger. No one comes to save me. And I also think that this comes from too, like back in the day, women couldn't get a house, couldn't get a job, couldn't get a bank account, couldn't get anything without a man. And they did that on purpose, right? They needed women to center men. And so they created this system, the patriarchy, right? And so women couldn't really do anything, which caused us to be stuck in situations where we couldn't leave, right? And that's the whole idea of barefoot and pregnant. Barefoot so she can't run away, pregnant so that she can't go and leave you for another man in the summertime, right? And so all of these ideas created a very dangerous environment for women, because we had to become dependent on other people. And a lot of us dealt with a domestic abuse, sexual abuse within our marriages, because if you're married and you say no, a lot of them will just take it and say, go tell the police, and the police are going to support them because you're married, right? And you could be 14 years old. They don't give a fuck, damn or shit, because they created the system to support them, not you, right? And so we were failed by the system, betrayed by the system, betrayed by society. And we start to internalize that nobody is coming to save us. I internalized that at 13 because I delusionally believed that my daddy was coming to save me. I literally, I don't know why. I don't know why I thought he was just going to come and swoop in like a knight on a, white horse and come get you, girl. Because I was living in a dangerous, violent society, environment. And when I was 13, I remember the day that it happened. I was listening to Mariah Carey breakdown. I wrote a poem. I didn't feel that about no man, but I felt that my daddy had broke me down. And I wrote a poem about it. And I remember I said, he's not coming to save me. And that was the day I started fighting back. That was the day I gave into distortion. That was the day that I collapsed instead of just tolerating, And so we internalize that nobody is coming to save us. I'll do it all myself, so no one has power over me as well. Because again, we didn't have access to money or bank accounts or anything, right? And so there was money is whoever has the money has the power, right? I'd rather burn out than owe anyone anything. Meaning like we don't, rest was a luxury for us. Because if we're going to be overgiven anyways, I might as well overgive towards me, having my own means. So you become the provider, you become the fixer, and you become the strong one from that loop. But your nervous system is exhausted and your heart feels unsafe to receive because you've tied receiving to being abused, to there being strings attached, to um people talking about you or whatever the case may have been in your family dynamic, right? And then there's also the savior complex, which is often um the savior complex is often the child of a deep soul betrayal, okay, or deep soul guilt that you couldn't stop the pain, right? Shame that you still carry it, and a hope that by saving other people you'll redeem yourself from that wound, right? But it becomes a loop where one keeps leaving their body, overriding their truth, and by bypassing their need for the sake of other people. If I could be saved, maybe I can. I mean, if I couldn't be saved, maybe I could save somebody else. It's like protecting people from the trauma that we had to experience, right? For me, that's the way that it looks. I don't want nobody to ever feel how I felt like as a kid. And so when I was in college, I remember I would go home and I would get my little cousin who was dealing with a lot of depression. And I would like take her to the ice cream shop or go home and try to help her with her homework. And it was like if I couldn't be saved, maybe I could save somebody else. It also looks like if I'm good enough, useful enough, wise enough, maybe I'll be loved. If I can just help them, they'll love me, right? And so we think that we have to earn love, right? Prove love, whatever. If I fix the world, maybe it'll be safe. I'll be safe in it, right? If I need people to show up in a specific way so I can feel safe. And if I prove I'm valuable, I won't be abandoned again. And so you become the healer, you become the guide, you become the one who holds it all together, but secretly you're waiting for someone to rescue you. Okay. So the loop sustains itself because each role reinforces the other. The invisible one can't ask for help, right? The hyper independent one feels shame for receiving, and the savior doesn't allow themselves to just be without earning their value. And betrayal is the energetic glue of all of that. The unprocessed grief that says, no one showed up for me, so I must become everything. They all are just reinforcing each other, and that's the loop, right? So the martyr loop, when birthed through betrayal, often looks like being the helper and never being helped, over functioning in relationships, meaning like you they mama, right? Collapsing boundaries to prove that you love somebody, meaning like not being able to say no, not holding your integrity in that relationship because you want them to love you. Spiritual bypassing through service, meaning you can't focus on your own healing because the healing of betrayal that you feel, you can't focus on that because you focused on other people and trying to heal it in other people, right? And then a deep rooted fear of being a burden. A lot of us feel like we are burdened on other people, especially if you grew up in that single parent type of environment where you needed help, or where anytime you asked for help, you were shamed or you were talked about or people bragged about helping you or whatever the case may be. Everybody knew. So if I suffer, maybe I can keep other people safe. That's what we internalize. But the oversoul says your healing frees more than your sacrifice ever could, meaning you need to heal yourself. Because if you heal yourself, then you hold the original tone, the original divine blueprint, the template that we all exist at. You hold that frequency, and that's the only way you can make change. You can't make change by forcing change because anything in love comes in ease, right? Which means that you are the work. You are what you're supposed to be doing in this lifetime. Many people come to me and they ask me, what's my life purpose? You have everything already. You're just trying to remember where all the parts go. And so your job, first and foremost, you need to love yourself. And so if there's anything that you are doing that you don't like that you're doing, or you feel like you need to hide it, or that can't fully come to the party, then you need to look at it fairly and figure out whether it's your belief system or something that somebody projected onto you, right? If it's something that somebody projected onto you and you actually like it, bring it back to the top. But if it's something that you actually don't like, and that brings you shame or whatever the case may be, then change it. You're not all of your old versions. You're the version witnessing those old versions, but you are not that version anymore. And it's okay for you to change and evolve and grow. And so if you didn't like it, change, do something about it. But the first step is self-love. And self-love means healthy boundaries. You have to have healthy boundaries. You have to be able to say no, because if you don't say no, you're not showing up authentically. And every single relationship, genuine relationship, is built on conflict. And conflict is not always rah, 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 rah. Conflict is you defending your differences. You showing people works for you and what doesn't work for you. But if you never say anything, nobody knows what works for you and what doesn't. And so they just take advantage. And you are allowing them to take advantage by not standing up for yourself or not telling people where the line is for you, right? And then the second part is seeing the beauty in your experiences. There's so many of us who think that life is happening to us and that there's no control, and we try to control in these little ways by telling other people what to do. But the only thing you can control in this life is you, right? And so you have to almost surrender, meaning like whatever comes in, let it come in, whatever goes out, let it go out, and just understand that you're always in the right place, doing the right things with the right people. Also the experiences that you've been through, in order for us to figure out what it is that needed to be healed in our ancestral line, because now there's ancestral karma, right? Now there's things that have been inherited and passed down because we keep looping, right? And which means we keep incarnating, and every time we incarnate, whatever we didn't heal in the last life is in this life. And so now that we so far down the fucking line, we need to heal the ancestral karma as well, which means that you have to understand that in order for you to heal that, the medicine is in the poison. And so you got to go into the poison. You don't understand what needs to be healed until you seep yourself in it, until you have the experience yourself. It's almost like how white people don't understand the plight of Black people. And it's because you've never had to deal with what we had to deal with. And so you can't understand it because you can't conceive it. A lot of times people are viewing life based off of how they would handle something. But if you've never been through what we've been through, then you don't even know how to handle this. Until you experience it yourself, you're not going to understand. That's why it's important to let Black people have a voice, because they're having a whole nother experience than you. I'm never going to understand what it's like to be a white man. If I want to understand what it's like to be a white man, I have to ask a white man. And even still, I'm only going to be able to understand it from a limited point of view because I haven't had the experience. And so the best managers at work are going to be the ones who have done the job. Are they not? Because have y'all ever had managers who were just put in that position, or they were hired in from another company and didn't know what the fuck they was talking about, and you had to do their job for them? Right? The best managers are the one who has done the job. So y'all thinking that it's punishment and it's your initiation. Right? It's how you unravel the shit that's been disentangled, or that's been entangled over lifetimes. How you unravel is you stop looking at it like punishment and like you're a victim who needs saving, and you start realizing that the only thing that matters in any situation that you have been through is what is it teaching you? What is the lesson? Right? Because the lesson is how you get out. It's the key to leaving that cycle. It's the way out of the cycle. What's the lesson? And then once you figure out what the lesson is, then you know where the boundary needs to be. And the boundary is what you're going to do. So nobody can ever disrespect your boundaries because you're going to be the one doing it. Right? Leave. If it's time to leave, have a conversation. Right? But you're going to be the one doing it. And then don't ever look back at that event unless you're trying to navigate something right now in this moment that is similar to something you've been through. But you got to love yourself and see the beauty in your experiences, or you're never going to figure out what you're here to do. And that's the work, right? And so what we also need to understand is that betrayal isn't always personal. It's ancestral, it's planetary, and it's galactic. The betrayal happened well before this version of you even existed, well before. And so healers were betrayed by their very own people that they came to help, right? And that's the people who remembered, who said, out of pure love, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay behind, and I'm going to hold the frequency. Right. And then they try to help all these people, pouring into these people endlessly. And then those people betray them. Right. I literally just had a session with a client the other day. And it was a situation in a past life where she had trusted somebody, and it was at a time where distortion was happening. She was a priestess. And this person that she trusted against her better judgment, by the way, there was a lot of signs not to trust this person, took something from her, killed her, and threw her off a bridge, right? And so anytime you feel betrayal in this lifetime, it's the key access point back to the memory, right? And for 3 lifetimes, she's been repeating something for 3 lifetimes because of this betrayal that happened 3 lifetimes ago. Stuck in a loop, right? And so it's not just this version of you that's fighting that betrayal. Okay. And a lot of times the high priestesses that stayed behind were betrayed by the very people who they were trying to help. Or have you ever because this also happens in this life. Have you ever been friends with somebody and you poured into them endlessly and they did something that betrayed you? That's the same thing. Those are just holographic triggers, though, to the original betrayal. I hope that makes sense. Priestesses were also hunted by the ones that they initiated, meaning that I told y'all that I have the memories of Amara, right, from Atlantis. And Amara, one of her male counterparts thought that he was being helpful, and he went and he gave codes to the opposition, which caused the temple to fall, right? And she initiated him. That was one of her closest allies. There were so many of us who had that same thing happen, and that echo keeps repeating. Even if you have read about the Sibyls, who are the muses, by the way, all of the Roman art in Renaissance era, that shit is us. But that's a story for another motherfucking day. I don't got time for it today, right? But the same thing happened to them. The male priestesses, the male priestesses betrayed them, and the temples fell, and they were enslaved, raped, unalived, all of the things. Also, divine lovers abandoned through forced soul contracts, right? Light bearers left behind in the collapse, right? These imprints echo across timelines, and they're not just memories, but energetic distortions we unconsciously act out over and over and over again until we become conscious enough to alchemize them, okay? And so, how do we shift this loop? We cannot keep endlessly giving, okay? You got to stop trying to prove yourself. You got to stop trying to convince them. And no more waiting for somebody to validate your worth. You validate it, okay? And also letting yourself be visible again, okay? Letting yourself be visible again. Releasing the fantasy that your love will change people. It will not. Your love is not meant to change people. People have to decide to change. People have to decide to change. It has to be a choice on their end. It's nothing that you can do, say, or anything to a person who is not willing to change. They're just going to be determined to misunderstand you. Why? Because you're threatening their ability to stay comfortable. And that's not a person who wants to change. And so if you keep reminding them that they need to change, they're going to reject you. They're going to make you feel unseen. They're going to make you feel like you're fucking crazy. They're going to treat you like an inconvenience, right? Because they're not willing to change. It's like beating a dead horse. If the horse is dead, it don't matter how many more times you hit that fucking horse, the horse is fucking dead, right? Your love is not going to change them. And reclaiming that love for your own embodiment is going to do way more work than you actually trying to prove that you lovable to somebody else or convince somebody that love is the way. Forgiving the part of you that thought sacrifice was holy. That also is another thing, right? Because you sacrifice everything to try to show them and it still wasn't enough. And we internalize that as we're not lovable. No. But that part of you does need to be forgiven. Why? Because there's another part of you that watched you do that shit and feels betrayed. Okay. It was sacred only because it reflected your devotion to other people and you wanted people to know love. It's not a bad thing, but devotion now has to move differently because that didn't work, right? And life is ultimately about refinement, meaning like we're trying to figure out through our experiences what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And we figure that out based off of how they make us feel. Why? Because that's the language that our soul uses to speak to us through feeling. Our soul does not speak to us through the mind. The mind is only a translator. You feel the feeling, it's sent up to the mind in order for the mind to translate that into organized expression so that other people can understand. But that's the only job of the mind. If you try to understand with the mind, that's like trying to understand French by studying English. The mind don't speak the language of understanding. Only your body does. Feeling. Only feeling does. Right? And so if it feels good, it doesn't matter what the emotion is. Yes, move towards it. It's getting closer to soul alignment. If it feels bad, no matter what the emotion is, shame, betrayal, embarrassment, whatever, it's a no. Choose another option. That's it. It does not have to be deeper than that. But most of us are tie it to a memory, or we think that it means something about us. So I am a bad person. So I am this. So I am what my mama told me I was. No, honey. It's only telling you that's not in alignment with your soul. Choose another option. If we start looking at life as if we weigh in our options, and that life is about refinement, we allowed to make mistakes. We're supposed to be failing into wisdom. Failing into wisdom, we'd be able to survive this mug a lot easier, right? So right now, the collective is being invited. Um, the collective is being invited to release martyrdom, okay? And so the Martyr Loop became a collective template because many of us remembered when Earth was unified and we tried to restore it too soon, okay? Meaning distortion had just happened, the fracture had just happened, people were not ready, okay? And we became burden carriers. We tried to rescue instead of radiate. We sacrificed our freedom for the illusion of stability, but now we are remembering that our flame is taught through presence, meaning we don't have to convince, we don't have to prove, we don't have to teach. We just have to show people through how we show up, right? I was talking to somebody the other day and I was saying, you don't teach people by trying to teach people. You don't heal people by trying to heal people. You heal yourself and you become the example for them to see. It's like you're the lighthouse. You're the lighthouse on the edge of the shore and they are coming off the choppy waters towards you. The lighthouse don't ever jump off the shore, swim through the water and be like, hey, over here, go this way and risk drowning. No, it stays on the fucking shore. That's what you're supposed to be doing, is staying on the shore. Right? If they need you, they come to you. But it looks like you in a car with your family and you telling them the story about how you navigating something with your friend and somebody gets offended because they like, nah, when it was me, you chose something different. Why are you treating this person different now? When it was me, you left me with this trauma. Right? And you, instead of reacting in defense, taking accountability and saying, you know what, I'm so sorry that I treated you that way. I'm sorry that back then I was not the person that I am today. And I wish I could have treated you differently because I see how much that impacts you. So I really wish that I could have did that different for you, but I can't hurt somebody just because I hurt you. I'm a different person, and I wish I could have extended you that grace because I see how much that impacted you. So I'm truly sorry. I will never do that to you again. That's it. Did I try to teach them? No. I just showed them what accountability looks like. I validated them because that's a God response. I'm sorry that I did that to you. That was fucked up. I see that left you with something. Hopefully you can release it now. So the reason why this is important, because a lot of us, through this compassion, through this martyr loop, we started taking on people's we started making burden bonds. And we started making energetic contracts that tie us to other people. Okay. So when you take on the weight of other people's pain, other people's healing, or other people's lineage responsibility, because a lot of times what people is dealing with is their lineage's problem, right? And that's why they repeat the same mistakes of the people that came before them. And so, especially without conscious consent or boundaries, it can create what we call a burden bond. And this is an energetic entanglement where your oversoul or your inner protector says, if I carry this for them, they will be safe. I will suffer so they don't have to. I can't tell you how many times that I have been broke and one of my little cousins or somebody has called me and asked for my help and I don't have it. But I would say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give it to them because I've suffered before. It's fine. I'll be good. I always am. And I give them the money, but that's me betraying myself and prioritizing their comfort, because whether or not I would have said, no, I don't actually have it, they would be in the same position they was before they called me. Right. But I took it on as I'm going to now suffer because I don't want them to suffer. Right. This is often unconscious and is rooted in past life vows of healers, of priestess, of protectors, or guardian roles. Childhood survival conditioning, being the strong one in the family dynamic. That was me. That was me, and I wore it proudly. Okay. Intergenerational martyr patterns as well, which is through the mother line. The mothers before us, they took a lot and said a lot less, right? Flame and oversoul distortion as well, which is mirror flames. Mirror flames are not here to be met. They're here to be clear, right? And so what happens within mirror energy is we start absorbing everybody's stuff, because mirror energy absorbs and is supposed to recode it and then transmit it back into the collective from a healed perspective, right? But because we've never been taught that, a lot of times what will happen is we will just absorb it and think it's ours. And so we absorb it and we hold on to it and thinking it's some type of defining characteristic for us, and we never transmit it and put it back into the collective, and so it causes this distortion, meaning like we hold on to it like it's ours. Opal is also a mirror flame, rose gold as well, because those are love mirrors, love mirrors, not knowing that they love mirrors. And then the seraphim and black lineages as well. So what happens energetically is when you take on another person's emotional, ancestral, or karmic weight, oversoul agreements activate, meaning a soul memory is triggered. I've done this before, I'll do it again. And this becomes a reactivation of a savior template or a protector role that you played before. Also, you can sync to their grid. And then when you sync to their grid, your energy body temporarily adjusts to carry the frequencies that are not yours. Which can look like, and I talked about this before, when you love somebody and when you having sex with somebody, you attach, there's a cord that attaches from you to that person. If they have any attachments or anything on them, they come across that fucking cord, right? And so this can cause exhaustion, looping, and identity confusion because you're taking on somebody else's energy. You're carrying it for them. But also energetic merging or binding, meaning that you can unconsciously enter into entanglement contracts, usually unspoken, that energetically binds you to that other person's karma and also to their lineage entrapment as well. So especially when a person hasn't asked for help, but you just feel compelled to assist, that's when this happens. Okay. And then the last one is an exchange debt pattern, right? You begin to subconsciously believe, if I help them, I'll be free. If I suffer enough, I'll be worthy. Right? Or maybe if I do this right, they'll finally heal. Okay. So if you are stuck in any of these contracts, this is what this looks like. Okay. It looks like random fatigue, especially after being around a certain person. You will feel exhausted. Feeling guilty if you don't help someone. Anytime you feel guilty if you don't help them is because you've energetically bound yourself to their burdens. Overgiving and then feeling resentment for that overgiving. Okay. Energetic contract. A sense of sole responsibility for people's awakening or happiness. I connected myself to my brother and 2 or 3 lifetimes ago, because I think it was 2 lifetimes ago. No, 3 lifetimes ago. I connected myself to my brother because I harmed him. But what I did harmed him. He harmed himself, but I blamed myself for the self-harm that he caused to himself. And so in this life, I find myself feeling responsible for him. And I don't understand it. Like, it literally, like, I feel like I have to be the one to fix him or save him or whatever. It's so much so that it repeats in my dreams and everything. It's fucking ridiculous, right? But it's because I bound myself to him in a previous lifetime. You might have people in your life like that as well. Also, my little cousin Jayla, I do the same thing with her as well. And it's because she used to be my daughter in a previous lifetime, right? And I felt responsible for her on a soul level. And so feeling like you have to repay people who have helped you. Yeah, so feeling like you have to repay people who have helped you, put you in a debt loop, that's also an energetic contract. Dream visitations where you're saving or carrying other people, contract. Okay? So this pattern comes from the helper martyrdom. It's an imprint that's strong in those who remember the fall from other worlds. That could be Lemuria, Atlantis, pre-Lyran harmonics. Many Sarah-based beings or people who carry the Sarah codes have tried to repair or reverse or prevent collapse, which often have led to us losing ourselves in the process, taking on karmic contracts not meant to be ours, becoming bound to other people's pain and trauma frequencies. So this is a part of why so many of us incarnate with hypersensitivity, hyper awareness, and a fear of not doing enough. Some of us come here already hypersensitive, and it's because of these past life shits. So for those of y'all who feel very deeply, yeah, welcome to the party. Okay. And so understand that you are not here to bind to every soul that needs love. Okay. Or every soul that you love. You are not here to bind to every soul that you love. You are here to mirror, activate, and remind, not to carry it for them. Your medicine is not in your sacrifice, it's in your sovereign presence, meaning you need to become the embodied example that you want other people to see and allow them to witness you. That is it, And so there's different type of martyrs. Chill. Okay. Each Each of these martyrs originate from different motivational wounds and soul survival imprints, and they often emerge when one's core essence is distorted through trauma, through ancestral burden, and collapsed identity roles. And so the first one is the spiritual martyr. And these are going to be people who feel like they must suffer to prove that their devotion or their purity. And that can look like giving everything to their mission or their community, neglecting self-care, and feeling guilty for resting. I think we see a lot of this in our grandmas sometimes, or at least, you know, the grandmas, I feel like, who are steeped in Christianity or steeped in whatever religion, and they're constantly showing up for that religion and neglecting everybody else. Okay, maybe y'all haven't experienced that. Okay, but the energetic signature is burnout disguised as enlightenment. It carries collective grief and karma, and the origin is often seated in religious orders, temples, or collapsed Atlantis priesthoods. And then we have the ancestral martyrs, and these are the kids who are just like, I'm gonna save the whole family through creating generational wealth. Hey, if I carry it, they don't have to, right? And so the behavior becomes taking on ancestral pain, feeling responsible for healing the entire bloodline, and also rejecting support, like not needing anything from them in the process of you trying to save them, right? It's rooted heaviness, bone deep fatigue, and strong mother father line entanglements, right? The origin, though, is born into heavy family systems where being the strong one was survival, right? And for me, that was the case. I felt like I had to be strong for everybody. Um, and I hate it, by the way, because a bitch ain't never been strong. I am okay, I'm strong in my own way, but not strong in the way they want me to be, right? Crushing underneath the pressure. Okay. But then there's also the worthiness martyr, which I think we get this a lot from our maternal lines. If I do enough, I'll be enough. In this society, women are conditioned to believe that they just have to give more. Men are conditioned to believe they just have to do more. Okay. I think women who are hyper independent end up doing both, which kind of sucks because you in your masculine energy trying to not need anybody, but you also end up endlessly giving to other people. Child, anyways. So it looks like overgiving, people pleasing, being useful to feel loved. The energetic signature is loss of self, resentment, energetic depletion masked as achievement, working yourself into the motherfucking ground, right? Often comes from childhood neglect and emotionally unavailable parents. I think a lot of us have this unworthiness martyr loop and don't realize it, especially the girls in the family, because we were conditioned to take care of everybody. The boys did not have to do nothing. We had to do everything, right? We had to earn the love. They got to kick their motherfucking feet up and was just love for being them. Hate that for us. But it is something that was repeated. You know, it's just how generations operated, right? There's also the invisible martyr as well. I must stay silent, small, or unseen in order to survive. These are going to be people who avoid needs, minimize their pain, hide their brilliance, and apologize for existing. Literally, right? And this comes from field suppression, throat chakra tension, and divine gift suppression as well. And so the memory comes from times when being seen meant being targeted, and that could be the Lyra collapse. It also can be the witch trials, because I got a girl who is burnt at the stake, and persecution timelines as well. And there's also savior martyrs as well. And these savior martyrs are going to be the people who say, if I don't save them, no one else will. And they attract wounded people. They take on the missions that are not meant for them. They bypass their own healing. And this looks like emotional entanglement, karmic looping, and heart overexhaustion. Heartbroken by everybody you don't come into damn contact with. And this comes from soul fragments for collapsing worlds. Again, Lyra, the Vega star system, Sirius. And we still remember, some of us still remember that fall. Okay. So these loops are created in modern time, not just as a trauma response, but it's often a multi-layered, multi-dimensional soul print rooted in soul vows, which is, I would never let this happen again. You know, anytime you say that, like you love somebody, like ain't nobody ever fucking hurting me like this again, you end up in a loop. I vow to carry the pain of other people. I must save them. Even if it costs me everything, like those type of things. Okay. And these are often made in moments of planetary collapse, soul exile, or witnessing massive suffering. You may feel these vows vibrating in your field if they were never released, meaning that for me, because there's imprints, right, on your field. So because the betrayal and shit like that happens all the time in his lifetime, in this specific lifetime. And so one thing that I noticed this year was that when I did open myself up to feeling again, events of betrayal started coming back up around the time that they actually happened in this life. And so every single September, I have a betrayal that comes up, and I just keep shutting it down, or I just keep um, looking at it very linearly. And this time around, I got to actually look at it holistically and realize that it's an entry point to a past life betrayal. And that person was just supposed to trigger the feeling so that I could get into the resonance, because that's where that memory exists. And so I started getting dreams about it when I opened myself up to exploring what the betrayal was about and why I was feeling that again, and the other places that I had felt that same betrayal, right? And so past life vows. And that's why in the tier 2 of my flame lineage readings, if you do tier 2 or tier 3 of the flame lineage readings, I look at past soul vows, because some of us made vows in previous lifetimes that keep repeating over and over again. And so the way that my gift works with that is that I'm able to tap into what that one event was that has had you fucked up for the last 5 lifetimes or 3 lifetimes. And I realized that it's usually like 3 to 2 lifetimes ago. There was something significant that happened, and then we just kept looping. Um, so yeah, but also childhood conditioning, being praised for being the responsible one. We wore that because if you were never praised in your home, and the only time you were praised was when you were giving to other people or when you were doing well, it becomes your identity, low key. It's like you attach that to, I'm the one who has it all together. I'm the one that's responsible. And you feel like it's something that you have to uphold, right? Also, feeling punished or rejected for expressing your needs as well. I feel like the girls are not allowed to complain. We supposed to just cook for everybody, make sure everybody got their shit done. Damn, they're raising the family. We didn't even have these damn babies. Now we raising these goddamn babies, and then we punished if we not. Oh my God. Or if we complain about it. It's crazy. And also the internalized belief system that your worth is in your usefulness, right? Children of single parents, caretakers, or those who experience family instability often internalize the need to be invisible or overly responsible, one or the other, planting the seed of martyrdom early in life. But there's also collective programming, which is society's glamorizing suffering, especially for women and especially for healers, right? We're supposed to give until we don't have anything else. Media celebrates the overworked, self-sacrificing archetype. The people who have literally overwork themselves. Spiritual communities equate selflessness with holiness. Crazy. This creates a distorted template where rest becomes guilt and receiving feels unsafe or selfish. Okay, let me block you because I don't know what the hell you got going on, but you're in the wrong place. This ain't a safe fucking environment for you. Oh, you are weird. Hold on, y'all. Hold on, y'all. Okay, anyways. And I am going to block you because who are you? Anyways. I seen her commenting, but I didn't see what the hell she was talking about, because it's always going to be somebody who wants to come in the mix and disrupt, right? I reported them as well. Thank you, Bits of K. So overworked to the point that I'm losing sleep. Yeah. Well, it happens all the time. I feel like that happens in my lives all the time. Like they be sending people in here to disrupt, and I can't do nothing but block them. I'm not giving them any of my energy because, anyways, on to the next. But we feel like it's unsafe for us to receive, or we feel like we're being selfish when we need something, And so There's also flame lineage distortion, which means that each flame has a core purpose, but in distortion, it becomes a trap. And so for the mirror flames, the people here to reflect, we become reflective rescuers, right? And sometimes we absorb other people's wounds. For the rose gold lineages, we are love martyrs. So we are literally giving endlessly, endlessly. Obsidians become wounded gatekeepers, and the seraphims become silent burden bearers. And so when your gifts are disconnected from sovereign exchange, the flame light begins to collapse into karmic service. Okay. And so let's talk about receiving for a second. Now, sacred exchange is not transactional at all, it's dimensional. So, sacred exchange is not about this for that, it's about resonance and mutual overflow. In distortion, we were taught that everything had to be earned, it had to be proved, it had to be repaid, or it had to be bound by obligation. But in higher octaves of being, sacred exchange works like I give from my essence, not from lack. I receive from my essence or from your essence, not from your performance. And nothing is really taken, nothing is owed. The field holds balance, right? Um, so some of us may still unconsciously associate it receiving with the contract because it has been, in a way, pushed towards transaction, right? And so we think that if we accept help or if we accept something, we must repay it, we must prove our worth, or we must balance the scales. But sacred exchange is multidimensional flow. So it trusts that the giving and receiving are held by source, not by tracking who gave what and when, right? It's not about the person who gave to you or the person who you're giving toward to. It's about keeping the flow of the energy moving, right? Also, receiving doesn't diminish you at all. It activates you. You may not fully understand yet that being supported doesn't awaken your independence or doesn't weaken your independence. It strengthens your expression, right? There's a root program that says if I receive help, I lose my sovereignty. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things for me is like feeling like I'm going to owe you something or that you could just talk to me any type of way because you helped me or whatever the case may be, because that's what I witnessed, right? And so we are here to live in a mirrored paradox. So true sovereignty includes being willing to receive the universe through other people. And that's something I'm learning right now. I was even in a session the other day and I was talking to a client and she said something that activated like a remembrance or something in me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to look at that later. And I like wrote it down. But when you're not open to receive from other people in general, you're not going to catch those moments or those messages that are sent to you from other people. Right. And so in some of the things that we need to ask ourselves is, will they take more than they give? Will I be beholden to them? Will they misunderstand the purity of my energy, right? When we're receiving, we often feel like it's exposure to these questions, right? But receiving is not vulnerability. It's energetic nourishment, and your system is just learning how to let that feel safe, okay? And then sacred exchange isn't always equal, it's alchemaic. Okay, meaning one of the distortions that we are unraveling right now is I must give back an equal value or I'm in debt. But sacred exchange doesn't always look like mirror image contribution. Sometimes one soul gives a resource, another soul gives remembrance, another gives presence, another gives frequency. And so we are trying to keep tit for tat based off of like money and based off of things like that. But there's so much more that you can exchange, right? And so in a soul economy, what equals can only be felt through truth resonance and not measurement. Those are people who are people pleasers, Kay. People who do a lot for you, and when you don't do for them, they complain. Yeah, that's a people pleaser. They're trying to prove their worth through you. Um, Also, you might be undervaluing the frequency you bring just by being. And I think a lot of us don't realize that our presence in other people's life is impactful. It is impactful. Anybody who has ever come across me, I have left them significantly better than they were before they met me. They are forever changed. And the moment that I'm gone, they feel it for the rest of their life. I've never lost a friendship, a relationship, or anything where that person has not tried to stay in community with me in some capacity. Right? So a lot of us are undervaluing what our presence brings as well. And so we that $10 ain't worth what you giving in that relationship, right? So undervaluing can make you believe that you must perform more before you're worthy to receive something, right? It's not true. You are already whole, and your presence holds so much more weight. A lot of us are also still holding other people's distorted receiving codes, and some of these receiving codes don't even really belong to us, right? We can carry mother lines that gave, and never received. So a lot of us are inheriting it through our maternal lineage. Unworthiness I inherit through my maternal lineage, right? So if you look at what's happened within your maternal line, I am telling you, when I found out as an adult the secrets of the family, I said, oh, well, it makes sense why everybody walking around this bitch like that, right? Priestess codes that were taught they must suffer in order to be worthy, and then feminine lines that were betrayed when they trusted, right? We are healing the collective receiving wound right now, not just our own. So just be gentle with yourself as you work through it. Through you clearing your wound, you help the collective, because once you set it straight in you, you send out a frequency that sends ripples across the collective. Sometimes the guilt that we feel when someone offers help doesn't just belong to us. Sometimes it's theirs, reflected through us. So learn how to receive is what I'm saying in short. Okay, receiving is a portal, it's not a stagnant pool. So there's a fear that if you open to receive, the energy might get stuck, it might be heavy or leave you compromised. But in sacred flow, receiving is not a container that feels, it's a portal that passes energy through you into the world. You're not meant to hoard what comes, because you got to realize that we are the mediums. We are standing in between the spirit and the material realm, right? We came here to embody our oversoul in full and create and bring things into form into this physical world from the angelic insight, right? From the spiritual insight. So sometimes the energy just needs to move through you so you can create based off of your perspective, right? Because we're all playing out one part of uh the one energy. Like we all have our specific key or our specific perspective that's going to help us to continue to grow and evolve together, right? And so that energy needs to move through you so that you can continue to create and push things into the collective. But if you hold on to it or hoard it, it tends to go to somebody else, which we talked about that before. If you have a brilliant idea and then you realize a couple of years later that somebody has the same idea and they're making millions off of it, because knowledge is like money, it goes where it's going to be transmitted into the collective, right? So there's no need to hoard money or knowledge, because they're just energy that came here to be transmitted. It came here to be brought down into this reality, right? And so you're not meant to hoard what comes in. Money don't come to you because every single time it comes to you, you put it in prison, in them banks. You put it in prison, and money was like, well, it's not safe for me to go over there because I'm not walking myself into prison. I know that money's a consciousness. Same for knowledge. If you hoard knowledge, knowledge is going to stop coming to you because you're not doing nothing with it. So you're meant to circulate it through embodiment, through beauty, through service and creation. Receiving becomes clean and sacred when you trust the energy isn't staying, it's moving through you to bless more of the things that are happening around you. You're the vessel. The vessel is crazy. You are the vessel of divine flow, not a collector of obligations. Okay, so if we let go of these old rules and we stop tracking, we stop calculating, we stop defending and trying to prove our worth to receive, we will discover a new receiving architecture forming in our life, which is where our gifts can come through people who don't want to own us. Meaning, like, people will give to you just because they support what you're doing. People will give to you just because they enjoy your company. Somebody sent me an email one time and they just said, hey, Taja, I'm struggling with this, and that. And I get a lot of emails like that. And I do take my time in responding to those emails because I feel like it's deeply personal. And some people just want to be heard. And so I sent him an email back just like, hey, this is what I would do. I even sent him some resources. He sent me like $200 on Cash App. And I'm like, well, damn, thank you. Big money. I ain't even asked for all that. I had a problem receiving it. But still, you open yourself up for things like that to happen because miracles happen every day. Where money arrives without a cost to your freedom, right? It is not everybody who wants to give to you is trying to own you, right? It's trying to indebt you. It's trying to manipulate or control you, right? Where help comes in and blesses both the giver and the receiver. Where you don't owe anything, but you still feel inspired and overflow in return, right? So this is the new sacred economy of the Sarah flame, which is coming back to life in these moments, okay? And so the things that we really need to understand is that the martyr loop is almost always shape shifting, okay? It shape shifts. And so you got to pay attention to what you're doing and how you're showing up, okay? Because there is a little bit of hidden pleasure when it comes to martyrdom. Sometimes martyrdom energy becomes a secret source of your identity or your power. Like, yeah, I am the strong one. You know what? No one else can do it like me. If I stop doing everything, who am I? You know, like that becomes the question afterwards. But those first two are, it becomes like a source of confidence for yourself. It's like you've identified yourself with how much you give without receiving, right? Well, I'm the strong one. You know, I'm a boss bitch. I'm this, I'm that. You know, I always had my shit together. It becomes like that, right? And we start wearing it as like a badge. I took care of all the kids in my family. I say that all the time. I took care of all the kids in my family. That's why I ain't got no kids now. You know, we wear it like a badge. So there may be a hidden satisfaction in being needed or being the one who holds it all together, especially if your flame has been denied sovereignty in past timelines. This isn't wrong, but it is a loop of an unmet need disguised as virtue. You know, no, I was a single mom. I had it all together. I was a single mom and I made sure all my kids had everything that they needed. It was at the expense of you spending time with them, though, because you worked 16-hour shifts back to back to back to back to back to back to back, right? So we wear it as a badge so we don't see that anything is I'm not going to say wrong with it, but anything is distorted in that energy, right? So you got to understand that. You also have to understand that you don't need to undo the past in order for you to be free. Okay? All of the timelines are happening simultaneously, right? They're all happening at the same time, simultaneously. Okay? And so if you clear this line, you clear them all. It only takes one version of you reaching its original frequency and it clears everything. Not only that, it clears your lineage, your ancestral line as well, because you hold their DNA, their crystalline DNA that's in all of your bodies, right? And so many martyrs unconsciously stay stuck because they're trying to repay something. They're trying to undo a cosmic mistake and redeem an ancestral memory, but release comes from truth. You are already free. The loop ends when you say that it does. You have to literally just realize, no, I always was worthy. I'm worthy because I exist, right? Your soul does not require endless penance. It requires remembrance, right? You're not here to earn your freedom. You're here to embody it. You already have all the pieces. It's so many of us who are looking for the pieces outside of ourselves. Literally, the pieces are already in you. It's in the stuff that you already do right now. You keep thinking there's something missing, and the only thing that's missing is your attention to yourself. That's it. But all of the pieces are here. They're already here. I'm not doing anything different than what I've always done. I'm just talking to people who actually want to change versus people who don't want to change. That's it. That's all. But I've always been this version of me. It's just I buried it because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to be exiled. I didn't want to be abandoned. I felt like I had to stay safe. So you just got to bring you back to the top, and all other people's projections and belief systems that have been pressed onto you since you were a kid. Go back and unpack that shit and uncover it because the material is all there. Okay. So also understand you do not have to rescue anyone. And that also means the collective. You're not here to rescue anyone. I think as a trauma response, we are trying to protect other people from the things that we have been through. And so we think that our life's mission is to protect other people. I can't tell you how many people I have met that are therapists, which is trying to understand how the human mind works and human behavior, who have experienced significant amount of trauma. And then they end up hating their job because then they're also still just in a martyr loop, right? That happens to so many people. My best friend growing up has her master's degree in human studies and family behavior. And it's probably one of the people who needs therapy the most, right? But it's this martyr loop playing out. So you don't have to rescue any other people. You don't have to rescue the collective. Even the desire to help other people see their own martyrdom can become a subtle form of martyrdom, right? When you overextend to help people awaken, you aren't ready, or people who aren't ready, or whose path is different than yours, meaning they didn't come here for the same thing as you, you begin to absorb their karmic weight. And you're not here to save the collective. You're not here to save them. You are here to shine as a mirror, and those who are ready to remember are going to see you. They're going to resonate with you. But the invitation is neutral radiance. It's not rescue. You're not trying to rescue anybody. You are literally just fully living embodied. You're moving through your life and people are noticing and they're coming to ask for help. You're magnetizing the people, right? Now, fear, shame, and guilt. These three emotions are threshold guardians to reclaiming your sovereignty, right? Fear is the protector of collapsed timelines. So fear often guards the door to timelines where everything fell apart. And it says, don't try again, don't be visible, don't receive. But fear must be felt and witnessed, not bypassed. And there's so many people who will fear something, they reject whatever they think that they fearing. But fear sometimes is you brushing up against a door that you've been asking for, and your body's just checking in with you to say, hey, are you ready for this? Because we don't really got no survival mechanisms built up for this. But are you ready? You know, it could be that. It don't always have to be that something is about to go wrong. Fear is just a natural part of life. It's something that you have to move through, right? And so when you bypass it, meaning you reject it and you going the other way, you close that access point again. Okay. Beyond that fear is your courage to re-anchor joy in places that once collapsed, right? Fear sometimes is telling you that you're brushing up against a timeline where things went inherently wrong, right? But it's still giving you an opportunity for you to not fix what has happened, but re-anchor in that joy, to do it differently this time, to do it based on this version of you. Also, shame is the soul's cloaking mechanism. Shame is often a protective cloaking device that wraps around gifts that were once punished, shamed, or distorted. And you internalize that either your light was too much, your presence caused disruption, right? You were blamed for what wasn't yours. This happened to my mom a lot. And the reason being was because my mom has always been her own person. She was in a domestic violence relationship. She had two brand new babies, and her family kept on saying, stay with your husband, because that's what everybody else did. Now, my mama said, fuck that. I ain't getting my ass beat the fuck up while I'm pregnant and dragged through the fucking concrete. I'm going to come home. I'm going to go. Right. And everybody kept on saying, well, why don't you go back to your husband? Why don't you go back to your husband? And she was just like, well, I don't want to be abused. You know, my mama was always the one who always spoke up for any injustice in the family, anything like that. And she was shamed for it. She literally was treated like shit because she was the one who spoke up and disrupted everybody's ability to stay comfortable, you know? And so shame is not lifted by you fixing it. It is lifted through you shining gentleness, compassion, and truth on the original distortion, realizing that you were never the one who is the problem, right? And then giving yourself grace. You were only trying to show them a different option. You just did it, you know, because my mom was the family crash out. She whooped everybody's ass. And I mean, I ain't saying they didn't deserve it. I ain't saying that's the right way to go about it, but they stopped fucking playing with her. That was for damn sure. You know, she didn't go about it in a way that I would have went about it. However, it was just her trying to protect herself because she always had to defend herself from the women in the lineage who were just like, well, I was abused. Well, I was sexually assaulted. Well, I had my nose broken 3 times. So who are you to complain about what you're going through? I had to go through it even worse than you. So fucking what? So fucking what? This ain't a goddamn competition. All of it is wrong. And that was my mama's stance on literally everything. But people couldn't see past her disrupting the comfortability. And so shame needs compassion because that's what you were missing was compassion, right? Shame needs compassion. You need to remother yourself, right? And then guilt is the contract keeper. Guilt is often tied to energetic vows or karmic contracts. I did something wrong, right? I must carry this forever because I did something wrong. If I let go, I betrayed him. I was reading a book the other day, and I'm reading like a fantasy book, and it was like 2 different worlds. There was the Fae world and there was the real world, right? And there came a time where there was a Fae king's family who was fully slain, right? Fully slain. And her little cousin was jealous of, there was 2 kids within that Fae family that was fully slain. There were 2 kids who were trying to escape. And one of the kids was jealous of the other little kid who was supposed to be the queen, right? And so he left her and escaped and didn't tell anybody who he was or anything like that. She comes back years later. He thinks that she ends up dying because they were going to slay her. He thinks she ends up dying, right? And he lived with the regret his entire life. And so he started working for the resistance to try to make up for what he did because he felt so much shame because he could have just grabbed her and took her with him. But he didn't do that, right? She ended up in another world. She ended up being sexually trafficked. She ended up all these damn things because he left her. And so he held on to that shame. He joined the resistance. Then he had to face her later on in life. And she was still kind, which made him feel even worse. You know, I think there's so many times that we will have this one moment that goes against ourselves. And it makes us feel so horrible that we define ourselves by that one specific moment. And then we look for proof throughout our life that proves that whatever we told ourselves, I'm a bad person, I'm this, I'm that. We look for every evidence that we are that bad person. And when we prove it, we don't even feel no type of way about it because we've already decided that we're a bad person, right? No, that one event does not change all the other events. And so that's why it's so important that you don't tie yourself to an experience or define yourself by an experience. Because if you define yourself by an experience, you lock yourself in a box. You create a karmic imprint. Instead, the experience was telling you, next time, nigga, because why would you leave your family? Next time, take her with you. Next time, you're never going to do that again because now you understood what that cost you. Now you understood what that feels like. Next time, you would choose another option. That's it. And then you forgive yourself. So guilt dissolves when the contract is rewritten through presence and through permission to evolve. Give yourself permission to evolve past that shitty person that you decided to be in that one moment. You know, these three are not obstacles, they're doorways, they're thresholds for you to walk through. So when healed, they become your greatest compass to soul sovereignty. Shame is telling you, hey, you're going in the wrong direction. Guilt is telling you, hey, you probably need to be nice to yourself in this area. I'm sorry, shame is telling you, you need to be nice to yourself in this area. Forgive yourself, move on. Same with guilt. Betrayal, there's some type of memory there. But meet yourself with gentleness. And how you help the collective see the martyr loop is you're the mirror flame. You're the very frequency that they need to witness. And so your frequency is the remembrance key. Work on your frequency, right? Speak mirror language, meaning don't say you stuck in a loop. You stuck in a loop, friend. You don't even see that you stuck in a martyr loop. Don't say that. Ask them, do you ever feel like you're unworthy when you're giving everything? Does receiving ever feel safe or unsafe to you? Ask questions instead of trying to tell them. I, as a spiritual mentor, when I took the road of curiosity instead of thinking that I understand what somebody is saying, and I ask a question instead of placing something on them, it keeps their defenses systems down, because you don't realize that when you feel like you under attack, everybody has a defense mechanism. That can look like denial. Those people who just won't be accountable, those people who in childhood had to rely on denial because it kept them safe, right? Sometimes it's anger. Who are you to press me? Those are kids who felt powerless, right? Or didn't speak up or whatever the case is. Some people go into regression. They just go into themselves and don't say anything. Why? Because that kept them safe. Everybody has an ego defense system, right? And so mirror language bypasses ego defenses and speaks directly to the soul's locked chambers. And so ask them a question instead of telling them what it is. What would happen if rest was holy? What would happen if you weren't always at service to other people? Okay, so reveal your own freedom first, though. You need to embody the example that you want to see. The greatest awakening comes from when you choose freedom for yourself publicly, vulnerably, consistently. Y'all know this whole platform that I've built is based off of me going through depression. I lost my granddad. I lost my job. I just moved to another state. Then I lost my cousin. And we said we was going to do life together. The whole first 30 years of our life together, we've been against odds because our granddad is a narcissist. And so we said, girl, we about to do it different. Fuck that. He ain't pitting us against each other now. Let's do something different. And then she dies. Right. And so I said, I'm never going back to being depressed. I'm going to have to figure it the fuck out. Right. And I created this platform where I started being honest about my experience. That people called me stupid. People start talking about how my mouth moves, all kind of shit. Right. And I just kept it out there because I feel like there's somebody out there who feels the way that I feel, and it's again that martyr loop of me being like, I must save them all. Maybe there's somebody out there who feels how I feel and maybe they can feel seen through me. That's literally like what I told myself. But I had to be vulnerable. I had to be honest about what my experiences were, right? You do too. You're here to be witnessed. You're not here to hide, And so when you rest in your temple instead of overgiving, ask for support without shame, and speak up instead of hiding, you become a living contradiction to the martyr illusion. And other people can feel that. Okay. You also create choice points, not pressure, meaning you cannot pressure somebody or force somebody into seeing the martyr loop. Okay, you cannot force somebody into seeing what they don't see. And a lot of people are martyrs for love just because they want to be loved and they remember what it was like to be fully met by somebody, and they're trying to force this person into doing it, right? You cannot force them. Your mission is not to wake up everyone, and everyone is not going to wake up. Your mission is to hold the door open while radiating your truth, okay? You are not more worthy when you suffer. You are worthy because you exist. And every single day you get to choose again. Some people are going to walk through the door. Other people are not going to walk through the door. That is okay. It's not your job to figure that out. The martyr loop dissolves not through correction, but through remembrance that there is nothing left to repay. You don't owe anybody anything. You're not here to fix the world. You are here to be the flame that reminds the world it is whole. Some of us generators just came here to live fully alive. And through us having fun and being excited about our experience, we give other people permission to choose that option. Everybody is an option. Everybody is a choice. When you look at other people, if you had made the same choices as them, lived the same experiences as them, this is where you would be. It is a choice. It reminds you of choices, right? But that person could also be looking at you and saying, okay, if I made all these choices, then I will be where she is. I could just make the choices she's making. Okay? So let go of the tools of suffering. Light your inner temple. And that's how you open the door. Let the new patterns sing through your bones, sing through what you do. Okay? Those who once remembered, who tried to carry too much, those who dim their own flame in an effort to save other people, they are not meant to teach through correction, not through rescue or over functioning anymore. They have to become the embodied mirror. Okay? Instead of fixing, correcting, or awakening other people through pressure, they become living examples of liberation. And that alone becomes the spark of remembrance for those who are still trapped in the loop. Okay? It's frequency first, word second. Frequency first, word second. Martyr coded beings often want to explain, they want to prove, they want to guide, they want to preach to wake other people up. But the real transmission is in your energy field. So when you rest without guilt, when you receive without shrinking, when you set boundaries without fear, when you share your truth without over explaining it, feeling like you got to get people to understand it, you transmit that this is what's possible. And no words are required in that. You know, when you decide to witness instead of force, or witness instead of fix, it changes everything, because the moment that someone feels pressured to change, their survival system is going to get activated, right? They're going to feel like you're something they need to survive. Okay. But when someone witnesses a being who chooses joy over obligation, who allows grace instead of striving, meaning like you can take fucking rest when you're supposed to, who lives without shame in their full radiance, their inner flame remembers that there is another way. And so you have to show them that remembrance is sovereign. It cannot be forced. It has to rise from within them. They have to make the choice, you know, and a lot of us don't like being told what to do, right? It causes us to resist. It causes us to feel like we're being forced into doing something. No, you just allow them to see you having fun, see you doing it your way. Then they see that that's another option, okay? And also, presence is a pathway, y'all. Presence is a pathway. Stop worrying about the past and stop thinking about the future. If you look at the future, look at what the goal is, and then figure out what's the one thing you can do today to get you closer to that. But it shouldn't be past that. It shouldn't be past that. When you look back at the past, you only should look back at the past if you're trying to navigate something that you've been through. So you can go back and get the lesson and the boundary, but that's it. It shouldn't be past that. You not staying present in the moment causes so many issues, because that's where you create from. That's where you get clarity from, right? That's where you embody. Okay. So former martyrs are being asked to practice cannot be present with someone else's pain without absorbing it, which means you have to stop trying to fix. Because when you try to fix, save, and heal, you absorb. It's just you open your field up to absorb. Instead, can you sit with them as they navigate this without you trying to fix it? Right? Can I hold space without overstepping my soul's role? Can I radiate truth without demanding change? Can I just be the truth and know that truth needs no proof? And not ask you to rise up to meet me if you're not ready to rise up and meet me. This is sacred neutrality. That's flame stewardship, and that's oversoul leadership. Okay. What you need to understand is you are no longer required to hold it all. You're now invited to become the living key that shows others how to set themselves free. And the paradox in this is that the more you release the need to help, the more the very being, your very being helps without effort. I can't tell you how. This is the craziest thing about my experience. My whole life I try to fix everybody in my family because I was trying to make myself feel safe, and I kept trying to tell them how to show up and how to be and do it this way. My way is the right way, all of these things, right? The moment that I stopped trying to fix them, they fell into line. The moment that I stopped trying to fix them, they fell into line. Now they're all working on themselves. And my cousin texted me one day and was like, you know what? You are really affecting the family. But at first I was crazy. I was this. I don't think practically. That's not practical. That's not realistic. That's not this. Right. At first it was that. But the moment that I just stopped focusing on them and I started focusing on me and started speaking to people who wanted to change, then they saw it. Then they heard me. Right. Some people don't see the value. The people who cause the wounds are not going to see your value. The people who cause the wounds are not going to recognize your wisdom. Why? Because they want to stay the same. And you're disrupting the comfortability. Stop talking to them and go to people who are willing to receive. And through you doing that, they still see you without you trying to force them to be another way. They still see you doing that. And they realize you're happy. You're the one in the family who's went off and is living this life where you're happy and you don't feel indebted to other people. They see that and they make the change by themselves. This is alchemy of the embodied mirror frequency, where you no longer have to convince other people of anything. You simply hold your frequency with clarity, with compassion and sovereignty. And when other people are ready, they will recognize themselves in you. I get this other option. Some will walk towards it and some people are going to turn away. Both are exactly where they're supposed to be. Okay. And so for me specifically, when I was a kid, I had decided that me needing things was dangerous for me. I decided that if I received something, I would lose my autonomy. And if I had to depend on somebody, I would be humiliated or made to be small. And so I was invisible. I tried to help everybody with everything. I mean, literally. And I was in doing the work for them. Taja, can you write me a nutrition plan? Taja, can you do this? Like literally the fucking walls is calling my name. So much so that I ran. I moved to Florida for 3 years. The moment that I got out of it, I was out that motherfucker. Get going. I went to Florida. I started living my best life. I started thriving. I opened a business. It was crazy. And then I got released from my job. I'm saying released because he didn't fire me. He rehired me, and then I fired myself because who the fuck? I didn't accept his invitation to work back for him after he fired me for no fucking reason. But I went back home because my papa was dying, and I didn't trust anybody to take care of him because again, I'm the responsible one. I'm the one who's going to make sure that he has what he needs. Because everybody is who they are, right? And so what I realized in all of this was that I was trying to pay back my mama's debt. And I was trying to protect her from shame because I felt like, she was struggling. And, I think she did the right thing. I think that she protected us because if somebody would put their hands on you while you 6 months motherfucking pregnant, they don't give a fuck about hitting you in front of them kids. I don't give a, And so I feel like she did the right thing and she was punished for it. She was shamed for it, and she still feels unworthy for some of the decisions that she made because now she feels like a bad mom because she wasn't able to provide for us, but I don't think she was a bad mom for that. I think she showed us so much. She showed us so much, and she loved, like, I never had to question whether or not my mama loved me. My mama was the type of mama who was like, Tadra, what happened? In front of the teacher, in front of the principal. Tadra, you tell me. We always could talk to her about everything. And if I called my mama, baby, run, she's coming. Like it was like that. I never had to worry about her, but she was treated so poorly because of that. And so I felt like I needed to help in whatever way that I could. And so I made myself indispensable. I literally watched everybody's kids, and my auntie helped us with a lot of stuff. And so when she had kids, I was always over there. I was always, trying to repay that. And so crazy in the process of you doing that, getting called selfish, in the process of you literally erasing your entire childhood and getting called selfish for that, it pushed me into a deeper loop, which was fucking insane, because I don't understand how somebody like me could be selfish when I've learned how to cook at 9 and take care of y'all motherfucking kids. Anyways, child. So this is what I'm releasing, right? And so the reason why I wanted to get on here and talk about this today is because I feel like there's internalized dynamics that we have at play that are much bigger than ourselves. And so we got to realize what the patterns are. And sometimes we need the origin of that pattern. Because if we don't have the origin of that pattern, if we don't have the cause, sometimes we don't know what to do because we don't know where to start the unraveling, right? And so I wanted to talk about this because I think that a lot of us suffer from these, male and women, men and women, because, my brother got a job at 15 to make sure I had shoes, me, and I'm his little sister, 16 months. And he's been working ever since 15. He's always had 2 jobs, never got a chance to rest, still don't get a chance to rest, And so to see that it's not just the women who fall into these loops, but it's just, kids of single mothers, people who, were forced into self-sufficiency, people who had to be independent, or people who had to figure it out themselves because there wasn't enough resources for them. And that's a push down from how society has stripped us of our resources, And so a lot of us ended up being the one who didn't need help, the one who was brilliant, the one I got scholarships to college. Not only honor scholarship because I was a straight A student, but I also was number 1 in the state with track. And so I went to a D1 college, and I had college was paid for. My family didn't have to worry about that, But all of that was a result of me trying to prove myself. And also I was driven by the fact that, we was talking about in my family, and I felt like I'm going to make all you motherfuckers eat your words. And that anger, that resentment, that'll drive you far. That'll drive you far. It drove me all the way to the top. And then when I got to the top, I didn't even want to rub it in your face no more, because now I done healed from all that shit. But I remember it's up here, And so it creates these cycles where we fear that receiving is going to lead to entrapment, or we got to repay somebody, or we're going to be indebted to somebody, because there's always strings attached in this society to us needing something as Black people. We've always had to give up something. It's associated. We associate our value with giving as women. Men associate their value with doing and how quickly they can reach success, which is impossible for us. And it's just all of these loops that are activating these old imprints that we have on our field, that we don't even realize are them weaponizing our inability to remember with our mind against us, because a lot of them know exactly who the fuck we are. They know exactly who you are. They know exactly what you've been through, and they weaponizing that shit against us. And so I just wanted to get on here and say that. Okay. How you break it is you need to, something you can declare to yourself is, I now release the vow to carry other people's burdens as my own. I am safe to be seen, safe to receive, and safe to reset. You can also do some embodiment healing instead of working through your mind only. Practice receiving in micro ways daily, meaning like help, asking for help, taking your instead of, somebody giving you a compliment and you dismissing, you actually sit there with the uncomfortableness of receiving that compliment, allowing people to take care of you. One thing that I've been doing, like I got a friend who reminds me a lot of myself, and I ain't really had friends who like pour back into me in a way that I pour back into them. And like, if we're out and about, like she'll be like, oh, I'll purchase this or whatever it is. And I'll be like, okay, well, I'll get the tickets, or I'll get the whatever. And like, it feels good to be in those dynamics where you don't have to endlessly be the one, allowing yourself to be held by community, by partnership, by source, sitting with those uncomfortable emotions, and instead of judging them, literally try to figure out what you need to stay comfortable, right? Because you're going to have to sit with him regardless. And so you might as well have your snacks and your, if you need a little bit of wine, so a little bit of weed, whatever you need. Okay. Rom-com, warm, heated blanket, weighted blanket, whatever your vibe is, nice little playlist, put that shit on, but sit with that uncomfortable feeling, because it is trying to tell you something. But you have to feel it. You have to let it in instead of resisting it, trying to push it back down. Let it in, make sure that you're comfortable, cry it out, do whatever you got to do. Right. And then there's wisdom in that. Your mind is supposed to help you to translate that wisdom into expression. Figure out how to logically organize it once you sit with it, and then tell somebody. You know, honor your body as sovereign, even while it's visible. Okay. You are allowed to be yourself, man. You are allowed to be yourself. You are allowed to be yourself, but this whole world has told you that you're not allowed to be yourself. You have to fit into this box, right? They're always shaping you, right? Because I think the external validation loop comes from school, right? First, they take you to church. And then if you ain't acting right in church, you're getting whooped, you're getting punished, you're getting all of this, and they tell you you're going to hell. Then you go to school, and you can't do nothing in school unless your teacher say that you've done a good job. And so now you got somebody outside of you who is grading you and comparing you to other students, because there's a valedictorian, there's a person who is at the top, and they're trying to push you towards perfectionism. And that's why they give you perfect attendance awards and perfect this awards and all of that shit, right? Because they're trying to push you into needing someone external of you to validate you. And then you go to work and they do the same shit, right? Because then you have an annual evaluation where they sitting down and they talking to you and they reprimanding you and they saying you need to do fucking better. You're not giving us your best. You're just skating through. We need you to work harder. We need you to be like Angela, right? And then they constantly comparing you and they constantly giving employee of the month rewards and things like that. And then they tell you about retirement. And retirement is like after you have spent all of your life, 65 years working to the motherfucking bone for me, then you get to live later. You get to live later. So you don't get to live right now. You get to live later. And all that shit affects us on a subconscious level. And so we always looking for somebody external of us to validate us. The only person you need to validate you is you. That's it. You know, we always are taking other people's projections and fears and all the shit that they dealing with that they don't know how to deal with. So they just push it onto you as if it's our shit to take care of. You know, we internalize it and believe these people. Right. And it just creates loops and cycles. And it's okay for you to be yourself. But in order for you to be yourself, you got to go back to through your belief systems and make sure that it's something you actually believe and not something you was told to believe. Okay. Your life does not have to be a monument or a monument to your endurance. Okay. It can become a sanctuary for your joy. The time of martyrdom, it really is ending as a collective, but the time of embodiment has come, meaning that it's so important for you to be in your body and to know who you are. Okay. It is so important. And that means that be a fucking mess. Stop trying to be perfect. Perfection is something they teach robots. Perfection is how they unify you and make you all think the same way and be the same thing. It is part of the matrix. It is the end goal for the matrix is perfectionism, which is compliance, which also has to do with compliance and obedience. And also you taking someone else's judgment of you as a good job. If you are, in order for you to be authentic, you have to disrupt. You have to be yourself. You have to be different from that crowd. The goal is not that crowd. It's not perfection. It's authenticity. And authenticity requires refinement. When you wake up in the morning, what I would do is, what did you like about yesterday? What didn't you like? What were you most grateful for? Whatever you're most grateful for, sit in 10 minutes of that. Whatever you like, take that into this new day, right? Whatever you didn't like, choose another option. Forgive yourself, choose another option. That's it. It could all be that simple, but you have to allow yourself to fail because there is no failure. It's only, did this option work or did it not work? And then choose another option, right? Shame and guilt and betrayal, that's not saying that there's something wrong with you. It's saying that whatever choices you made, those are leading to timelines that you don't like. Make different choices, because choices are activation keys. They open up timelines. Until you make a different choice, you're going to continue down that path of pain and suffering. Make another fucking choice. That's it. So if you got to quit your job on a motherfucking limb, quit that fucking job, because the universe is going to step in and support you. Why? Because you made a sovereign act towards something you want. Right? So some things that I would be asking myself is, where in my body do I still hold what's not mine? Who and what do I still believe I need to earn, or who and what do I still believe I need to earn, love, or belong from? Am I willing to return any energetic contracts I agreed to out of guilt or fear? What would it feel like to be helped without being bonded? Do I feel the need to balance the scales when I receive something? This is going to be on my YouTube, y'all, as soon as I get off. What do I fear will happen if I receive more than I give? What template of receiving did I witness growing up? What did it cost them? For my mom, it cost her shame. It cost her humiliation. It cost her exile. Right. And so when I feel like I'm receiving something, I have to set the scales back in balance, or I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be a burden. I'm going to be too much. Right. Do I believe that someone else's giving makes me less sovereign, and why? Where am I still tracking or measuring value in exchange instead of feeling into alignment? Can I allow my energy to move through me instead of getting stuck? When did I first learn that receiving comes with a price? What did I make that mean about my worth and my safety? Because your mind is always creating stories, and your mind is a fucking liar. Right? When you're trying to figure things out with your mind is only supposed to give you possibilities. But then we think that those possibilities are true, but they're not rooted in any truth. Feeling is where the truth is, not thinking. You can't think your way through a feeling. Right? The feeling comes first, and the body sends it up to the mind to be organized. But that's it. But you got to sit with it. Right? What would change if I believed receiving could be pure, safe, and sacred? How can I let help in without giving my boundaries or sovereignty? What kind of help feels most nourishing, and how can I practice receiving it? Can I let someone give to me while keeping my body relaxed and open? That's a hard one for me. Okay. What part of me still believes I have to earn my place? How do I feel when I imagine receiving without giving back? What does my body do when I'm truly supported? Where can I practice receiving today, in a small way, in a safe way? What would change if being seen didn't require being helpful? Okay? You can also finish this sentence. When I receive without guilt, I fear it might mean growing up, I believed help came with strings. Okay? I am learning that receiving does not mean. Ways I've tried to earn my keep include: I am ready to receive from people who are. How do I define sacred, sovereign exchange now? I want to be clear about something. Or I just want to say this, Master Light. I fear nothing. I think that that's noble, but I don't think it's honest, because fear is a natural part of life. Fear is something that comes up as a threshold keeper. Everybody experiences fear. When you deny the fact that you experience fear, you deny the access point. And so it's so important for you to allow yourself to feel the fear, because it has to move through you. It's only making sure that you're prepared and you're ready. But if you say, I don't feel it, and that causes you not to acknowledge it. It's also like when you go through a breakup and you're like, well, I'm not worried about that. And you take this nonchalant approach, that's you suppressing. And so it's still going to live in your body. It's still going to come up. It's still going to plague you. And it just gets louder and louder and louder and louder until you do something about it. And so to me, I fear nothing is dismissal. It's not honest, because everybody fears something. It's just, do you let that throw you off kilter? Do you let that throw you out of alignment with yourself? Or do you let it move through you? Okay. All is well is good. All is well is good. And I don't say that as a dig, because I think that a lot of us do that because we're trying to affirm, right? We're trying to affirm something to ourselves. We're trying to rewire our brain, but you can't rewire your brain with denial, right? Okay, good. Because I think that just kind of is like a defense mechanism that we have built in internally. And so I just wanted to reflect that back to you. Okay. I'm not saying my way is the right way or anything like that. But I just can only speak from my experience and things that I've seen as a spiritual mentor. I think when we say, oh, well, that doesn't affect me, a lot of times we reject what exists inside of ourselves, because it keeps us safe from having to feel shame or guilt or betrayal or whatever the case may be. And so I just wanted to say that, just so that we don't spiritually bypass. Okay. I have a client and I'm already a minute late. I love y'all. This is going to be on YouTube under the Martyr Loop in my lives. So if you just go to where it says live, it'll be there for you guys to watch it back and get the questions. Those are some journal prompts that I would be doing if I was you. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. I love y'all. Gotta go.